Hi guys, this is Vineet, and in this video we will talk about SQL Server Startup. So let's go to notes. So basically the database engine of SQL Server can run as a service or as a command line application, which is SQL Server.exe. So let's take a look at services. So here we see Microsoft SQL Server services. So we are running two instances on this computer. So this one is the default instance and another instance is instance 1. So in the background it runs MS SQL Server exe file. Right now it's running as a service. So the installation folder is this. Let me open that for you. So let's go to the installation folder. So this is the bin directory from where the SQL Server exe gets executed. So let me try to locate it. So this is the executable, and this one SQL Server exe is the application basically which is currently running as a service. So if we go back to notes, so this application can either run as a service or a command line application, and we basically normally run SQL Server as a service, however can use command line application while troubleshooting any problems or to modify any configuration settings in the single user mode. So what is the single user mode? Let me show you. So normally a database can be used by multiple users, but we can set a particular database to a single user mode, so only one particular user uh, can use that database in any point of time. So let me show you how to set a database in single user mode first. So here SQL Server is open. Let me log on to the default instance of SQL Server, and let's expand on the databases. Here we have Northwind databases. Right now the database is in multi-user mode. So any number of users can connect to this database and run queries against any of the tables residing within that database. But let's go to properties and see if we can set it to single user mode. So let's see if we have anything like task which can set it to single user mode. Here we don't see any options to put the database in single user mode. So let's see if we have something inside the properties. So let's try to locate that option. So file groups is, so this is the options section. There is an option section. So let's see if we find the single user mode option over here. Let me quickly try to glance through the option. So if you look at this option, restrict access, it is set to multi-user. So this can be set to a single user or a particular restricted user as well. So in order to put the database in single user mode, select single user and click OK. And this will take database to a single user mode, and you will see single user mode written against the database. You will see that. So let me put that back to the multi-user mode quickly. So setting into multi-user mode. Okay. So right now it's set to multi-user mode. Let's quickly go back to the notes. And so basically SQL Server can run as a service, and command line application can also be used to troubleshoot any issues and to modify any configuration setting in the single user mode. Basically we are talking about the startup type of this SQL Server service, and now we are solely dedicating to the service part. I'm not talking about the command line application. So SQL Server runs as a service here. So if you see here, SQL Server service is running as a service. So you can control the startup type from here. You can set it to automatic or manual. So if you set it to automatic, whenever the Windows restarts, the service came back up automatically. If it's set to manual, you need to manually start the service or invoke the service. So one way is to go to the services.msc and check this. Another way is to open up configuration manager, and from there you can perform the same thing as well. And let me open the configuration manager. So here you see the SQL Server Services section. So here you will see the SQL Server service for the default instance. So the startup type is automatic. You can control the startup type from here as well. So let's see. So this section, services section, you can select the startup mode to automatic or manual, or you can also start and stop service from here. So this is the second way you can tweak the service settings. Let's go back to the notes. Now various startup parameters can be passed to SQL Server, and these parameters basically control how database engine starts and which options are started. And SQL Server Configuration Manager can be used to tweak these startup options. And these parameters can be also passed to command line utility SQL Server exe as well. And basically this is giving us an option that if you pass the -c parameter or -c parameter to start the SQL Server without using any service. So let me go ahead and close the management console and try to stop the SQL Server services. So let me stop both the instances. Instance 1 should be stopped, and I'm stopping MS SQL Server as well. So let's try to see if we can play with those parameters. So let's go to command prompt and go to the bin directory which we opened earlier. So this is the bin directory. Copy the path and go there. So you need to use cd command to change the directory. And let's see. The command was SQL Server exe. Let's start it with -c parameter. So it is giving us some message that multiple instances of SQL Server are installed on this computer. Re-enter the command by specifying the s parameter with the name of the instance you want to start. So what is the name of the instance? If you go to configuration manager, here the name of the default instance is MS SQL Server. So I need to mention the name of the. So right now if we see the services are stopped, right? The SQL Server agent is stopped and the SQL Server default instance is stopped. So let's go back to command prompt. So our command was not complete, so you need to specify this option, and you need to specify s parameter, and you need to specify the default instance. So our instance is MS SQL Server. So it is saying that could not open log file or specified path cannot be found. So we can search about the, although the command did not run, but we can search about the SQL Server exe parameters over here. So we talk about -f parameter, we need to provide name only. This is what we have done, and ideally it should take that parameter to not run SQL Server as a service. However, we have got we are getting some errors while running this command because we are not able to open the log file. Okay, let's leave this for now, and let's continue with the notes. we will cover that up in our next series of videos. Right now it's not working. So now let me take you through a demo to use the startup parameters. So give me a moment. So how to start the parameters using the configuration manager is one way. Configuration manager can be used. So let's go back to the configuration manager, SQL Server configuration manager. It's right now closed. So quickly open that. So once the SQL Server configuration manager is opened, select the SQL Server services node, which is already selected, and right click the SQL Server services and go to properties. So this properties window give you certain options which you can tweak, and we can go to the advanced tab to tweak these properties. So let's see what all properties do we have. I'm not able to expand this window, so let's see. So on the advanced tab, advanced section, click in the startup parameter box. So these are the startup parameters which are getting passed. So if you see right now, -d parameter is passed, and we are running SQL. Also -d parameter is passed, and then we are passing the name of the database file, which is the default database. D stands for, I think, the default database. Then we are passing -e option, and what we are passing against it, we are passing the error log directory and location to the error log file. And next option is the L option, and we are specifying the log data file location. Well, L stands for log data file location. So we saw the -t, -e and -l parameters that are set by default, and we should be careful not to modify these or other existing parameters accidentally. And if we take a look here, each parameter is separated by a semicolon. So for example, here we have a semicolon which is separating this -l parameter, which is a new parameter. And after semicolon there's a hyphen followed by the letter of the parameter and the value of the parameter we are adding. For example, -L is for the log data file location we are mentioning, and the same way can be used to specify any additional parameters as well. And once we tweak the startup parameters, we can click on apply to save the changes, and the parameters will be applied next time the SQL Server instances started. So right now, if we make any modifications to a parameter, we need to click apply and click on OK, and then we need to restart the service to take those so that those parameters can take effect during the SQL Server service initiation. And similarly, the parameters can be removed as well, the way we show you how you can add it. Now let's talk about the common startup parameters in SQL Server and how they are used. We saw first three parameters, which are -t, -e and -l, which are the default parameters for the SQL Server, and the remaining parameters can be used to configure additional settings. So we just saw that if we go to advanced, under startup parameters, -d can be used to set the path of the directory, or it sets the full path of the master database. If this parameter is omitted, the registry value is used. So whatever setting is there in the registry for the default database, that registry setting will be used. And next parameter was -e, so which indicates the full path for the error log. And if this parameter is omitted, the registry value is used again. And -l was the third parameter which is getting used, and it sets the full path of the master database log file. here we just shown you. And similarly, if this is omitted, registry values are used. And there are various other parameters. For example, -b can be used for breakpoint in response to an error, and it is used with the -y option when debugging. And if we go online, we can find details about this parameter. So let me go to Google and quickly see what all startup parameters are. So we can type SQL Server Startup parameters. So we can check the Microsoft documentation on this. So these are the startup options. So we talked about these options. So another options are these. -c can be used, which shortens the startup time when starting SQL Server from the command prompt. And typically the SQL Server database engine starts as a service by calling the service control manager, because the SQL Server database engine does not start as a service when starting from the command prompt. Use -c to skip this step. Alright, and there are other parameters as well, and you can go to this page to read those parameters, and you can configure those parameters in SQL Server Configuration Manager, or parameters can be used from the command line. So here it is giving an example for -m parameters, which is providing the client application name. So, and basically it limits the connection to a specific client application. So if we want to restrict MS SQL Server connection to a specific client application, this parameters can be used. So here we are using it with SQL Server command line option, -s parameters, and -s parameters to specify the instance name, which is MS SQL Server, which is the default instance. Then a -m parameter is used, and here we are defining the application name is Microsoft SQL Server Management Query Studio Query. So if we run this command, the SQL Server can only be used by Management Studio exclusively. And another option, another example is this, where the MS SQL Server can be used by only SQL command, mSQL command. So mSQL commands basically limits the connection to a single connection, and that connection must identify itself as a SQL command client program. So we can use this option to start SQL Server in a single user mode, and an unknown client application is taken only the available connection. So yeah, you can read out on these parameters to get more details. For now we are skipping these, as there are lots of parameters to go through. Alright, now we will we can talk about how we can manage the services from command line. So let's go to our notes. So another topic can be how we can manage the services from the command line. Let's review this. So basically we can start, stop, and pause SQL Server as we like any other service on the local system. And similarly, so one thing is that you can go to the services manager, and here if we refresh, let me start this service quickly. So we are running the default instance of SQL Server. So we just started the service. So similarly, service can be paused here, and service can be stopped here as well. And after its pause, it can be resumed. So One way is this, which is a graphical way. Another way we can use is we can use some command line commands which you can use to start the server, stop the server, pause, and resume the server. So let me give you those commands. So first command we can use is net start ms SQL Server. Another command is net start net stop ms SQL Server. ms SQL Server is the default instance of SQL Server, and to pause the SQL Server default instance, just type this, and to resume the SQL Server instance, just type this. So on a local system, you can type the necessary command at the standard command prompt. So let's see. Let me take you to command prompt. So opening that. So this is our command prompt where we can invoke these commands, and we can also connect to a remote system and then issue the necessary command. So first of all, let's manage a local system. So right now I want to stop ms SQL Server, so I can issue a net stop ms SQL Server command. So which will, okay, it is giving me access denied. So I think we need to open the command prompt in the administrative mode because it's not allowing us to do anything. So let me run it as administrator and see if that makes an effect. So now the SQL Server and the command prompt is opened in the administrative mode. Let's see. So I want to stop SQL Server default instance. So net stop ms SQL Server. Let's see if it allows us to. So now the service is stopping. So earlier we did not have privileges on the command prompt to start and stop the service. So service is stopped. Now let's give it a start. So I've started the service and it's starting up now. It's started now. So similarly, service can be paused and continued as well. And in order to start and stop the instance-based services, for example, this is instance 1, how you can start and stop the service. Let me show you with the example. So right now, if you take a look at this service is stopped, right? So we want to start this service. So how you can do that? So you can type net start command, and you have to type ms SQL, then you need to specify $, and you need to specify the instance name. In our case, it's instance 1. So I'm starting this service. So please note down the way you can start the instances. It's a little bit different from the default instance. The naming convention is a little bit different. So similarly, the same can be stopped using the stop command here. Alright, similarly it can be paused and continued as well. So I think we are fine, and let's see what else we can cover in this video. Alright, I think we are done for this video. In our next video we will talk about some SQL Server command line executable, how you can manage that. So we will work with the command line utility of SQL Server. So for this video we are fine with this, and we will cover the rest in next video. So stay in touch, and thank you so much for your time on this. Please do like this video and subscribe to my channel as well to get frequent updates on the video that I am uploading in the coming days. Thank you so much and have a nice day. Bye bye. Hi guys, this is Vineet, and in this video we will discuss about MSTTC, and this will be an introduction video. Let me take you to my notes. So what is MSTTC? Basically it's a Microsoft Distributed Transactions Coordinator. The role of this component is to coordinate the transaction between different servers. So it is basically a transaction manager which makes it possible for the client applications to work with multiple sources of data in a single transaction. So multiple sources can be multiple databases on the multiple servers, or maybe it's multiple databases on the same server as well. So when we have data on the databases on the multiple servers, this component, Microsoft Distributed Transaction Coordinator, can be used to coordinate the transaction, right, uh, in just a single transaction. So it basically coordinates the management of transactions. And now let's talk about a situation where one particular transaction is spanning multiple servers, which means we are writing a query which is accessing data from multiple databases on multiple servers. So when the transaction spans the multiple servers, it is the responsibility of those servers involved in the transaction to coordinate the management of transaction using MS-DTC. So those servers will get in touch with Microsoft DTC component to coordinate the transaction. Now let's talk about other situation where the transaction span multiple databases, but here multiple databases are present on the single server. So in that case, the SQL Server manages the transaction internally. And SQL Server can call MS DTC directly to start an explicit distributed transaction. Alright. Other ways to start the distributed transactions are as below. So whenever we call store procedure on a different server or on remote server, it automatically SQL makes contacts to MS-DTC if we are calling any stored procedure on the remote servers. Another scenario can be when we are updating data on multiple OLEDB data sources spanning multiple servers. The third situation can be when we are mentioning remote servers in a transaction. So in those cases, the ML SQL Server will get in touch with MS-DTC to start an explicit distributed transaction. So in case we are using the distributed transactions, we should have MS-DTC running on the server, and all instances of SQL Server running computers use the same transaction coordinator or MS-DTC. Let me type that for you. Alright, so regardless of how many number of instances of SQL Server are we running on a computer, we just need only one MS-DTC. So for example, if I now we are going through this demo where we will try to locate where is this MS-DTC service. One way is this. I'm giving you the shorter way. So the shorter way is to start the services window from services.msc. You can open it directly, and here is a service called Distributed Transaction Coordinator. So if we are running any transactions on this server, that will span multiple other servers as well. So this component must be running on this server. So right now I see it's in manual state but in running status. So this is the component Distributed Transaction Coordinator, which coordinates the transaction between different servers. Alright guys, so we are done with this video. Thank you so much for your time. Please do like this video and subscribe to my channel to get more updates. Thank you.